All right, let's jump into this deep dive. We've got a fascinating mix of research on information management and a bunch of visuals, all about value propositions and business cases.
Yeah, it's a really interesting combo.
It is, so get ready, because I think there are going to be some serious aha moments here, especially if you're, working on a big presentation or just love understanding how businesses really work, behind the scenes.
I think we're going to uncover a pretty clear path, actually, from, how you go from data to a really persuasive story.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, how do you actually grab attention? How do you make a message that really sticks?
Exactly.
All right, so let's start with this image here. Consider visual value propositions. And it's this graph showing energy savings over 30 years, and there's this like quick payback period highlighted. What do you think? Why are visuals like this so powerful?
Well, think about it. If you saw like a big wall of text
Oh, yeah.
versus this kind of graph, where would your eye go?
Right to the graph.
Visuals cut through all the clutter and make things like instantly understandable. So in this case, you see, boom, this is the benefit over a long period, and it's clear and easy to grasp.
Yeah, you see that return on investment immediately.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's look at this next one. Value propositions, things to consider and avoid. What jumps out at you here?
Well, this is all about like crafting a really good value proposition. And the big things are like customize it. Don't be generic, right? Show why your solution is actually better than the alternatives.
Okay, yeah.
And then describe the impact. So it's kind of, if you think about it like a handshake, a good, firm handshake.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you want your value proposition to be. Impactful.
I like that.
And then structure it logically. Make it make sense.
So it's not just like a limp handshake, you're really like going in for it.
Exactly.
All right, so then what are some things we should avoid doing?
Well, like I said, generic statements, those are just like, they don't have any impact. And then don't just list a bunch of features without saying what the benefit is.
Like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And then complexity. Keep it simple. People, if it's too much, they just tune out.
Yeah, they're like, I'm overwhelmed.
Right, exactly.
Okay, got it. So let's take a look at this visual, building the value proposition. And it's got these like key questions laid out, almost like, it's breaking down the process. So how do you think these questions help someone build a really strong proposition?
This is like your roadmap. It's guiding you through. So by answering these questions, what business improvement? By when? Through what ability? What's the investment? And what enables all of this? By answering these questions, you're making sure that you've covered all the bases.
Yeah, it's like a checklist, right?
Exactly. A checklist for success.
Love it. Okay, now let's look at this one, this value proposition template. What makes this so valuable as a template?
Well, this goes beyond just, brainstorming. This is a concrete structure to turn your idea into a plan. It helps you define, okay, what's the business improvement? But quantify it. What's the payback period? How much investment do we need? What's the actual solution? And what's the timing?
Okay, so it's going from this vague idea to something a lot more solid.
Yes, a blueprint.
And then how does this kind of transition into a business case, which we see in this image, value propositions and business cases?
So the value proposition, that grabs attention. The business case, that's what actually seals the deal. You're giving the data and the analysis to justify that investment.
So it's kind of like going from like a movie trailer to the full film.
Full movie, all the details.
All the, drama and the intricacies.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking benefits, return on investment, objectives, cash flow, risk, all the evidence to back it up.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, the nitty-gritty.
All right. Now, let's try to put ourselves in the customer's shoes with this image. Align your perceptions with those of the customer. Why is this step so important?
Empathy. You have to see things from their perspective. This is saying, understand how they see technology, price, the competition. You're comparing their view to yours.
So you're not just assuming you know what they think.
No, you're trying to get into their heads.
Okay, yeah.
So you can tailor the message.
Make it relevant for them.
Exactly.
All right, so how do we then go from understanding the customer to creating a really persuasive narrative? These next two, developing a theme statement and strengthen your theme with a value proposition, seem to give some clues.
Yeah, the key is to connect features with benefits and then quantify that benefit. Don't just say what it does. Show how it makes their lives better.
So not just like, our software has this amazing feature.
Right.
It'll save you this much time, or it'll increase your profit.
Exactly. Paint the picture of what they get out of it.
Okay, now, this one, proposal strategy statements, it's like, boom, 4 key strategies. How do you think these contribute to a winning proposition?
This is like the framework for how you position yourself. Emphasize your strengths, downplay your weaknesses, and then do the opposite for your competition. Highlight their weaknesses, downplay their strengths.
So it's strategic, like a game of chess almost.
Yes, it's all about strategy.
Okay, cool. But before we can even present our solution, we have to really understand what the customer needs, right? This visual requirements identification is making that point pretty clear.
Right. No assumptions. You gather requirements from documents, and most importantly, you talk to the customer.
You ask them.
You ask them.
Okay. Now, speaking of like building trust and all, compliance is huge, right? And this compliance checklist development, what are the key takeaways for this?
This is all about building credibility. Show you can be trusted. So break down those complex requirements into bite-sized pieces. Then you build what's called a compliance matrix. It's basically a framework to show how you meet all the requirements, big or small.
So it's not just saying, yeah, we're compliant.
No, you're showing it.
You're proving it.
And then this RFP reference image gives even more detail about what goes into that checklist. What's the important thing for our listeners to get here? This is where you're getting super specific. The RFP section reference, what's the requirement? What's your compliance status? Full, partial, none. And then, a comment section to explain or, point to a document for proof.
It's like that super organized chef who has all the ingredients prepped and measured out.
Exactly.
All right. Now let's move into the art of persuasive writing, which these next two images, persuasive writing and fundamental persuasive writing techniques, really dive into. What are the most important things to keep in mind when we're trying to write persuasively?
Keep it clear. Your writing should be clear and easy to follow. Use headings to guide the reader. Get to the point quickly. Short sentences.
Okay, so no rambling on and on?
No rambling.
Get to the chase.
Right. It should feel like a conversation, not a lecture.
Oh, I like that, yeah.
Keep it natural.
Engaging.
Yes.
Now, core persuasive writing principles. This is like, okay, the building blocks of a good argument. What do you think? What are the key takeaways here?
This is your framework, your structure. First, you got to be logical, right? Your argument has to make sense. Then you appeal to emotion. You got to make people feel something. Find common ground. Show that you share their values. Make it personal. Use concrete language. And always, ethics matter. Don't try to trick people. Be honest.
So it's like you're building this bridge, right,
Yeah.
between your idea and the reader.
Exactly.
Using logic and emotion and shared values.
Yes, that's the foundation.
I love it. Okay, so then how do we tailor our techniques for different audiences, which these next two persuasive writing techniques for different types of audiences and applying persuasive writing strategies kind of get into?
Not every audience is the same. What works for one person might not work for another. So you have to know your audience, what motivates them, what are their values, what's their communication style. Then you use the right techniques like reciprocity, scarcity, authority, consistency, liking, social proof. Those are just some examples.
So it's like speaking their language almost.
Yes, you have to speak their language.
Okay. Now, principles of clear writing. This seems to offer like really practical tips to make our writing better. What stands out to you here?
Active voice, precise language, personal pronouns. These make your writing clear and easy to understand. Avoid passive voice. It's too stuffy. Stay away from jargon. Nobody likes that. And watch out for nominalizations. Those can make your writing really dense and hard to follow.
So basically, be mindful of the words you choose. Make sure they're the right words for your audience.
Exactly. Make it easy for them to understand you.
Okay, got it. Now these images use graphics are talking about like how to make visuals that actually help your message. Why are visuals so important in a proposal?
People are visual. We process information better when we can see it. Good visuals can make a complex idea easy to understand. They can highlight important data. They can make your proposal more engaging and memorable.
Right. It's not just a boring document anymore.
Exactly. And they can add personality, a little bit of creativity, which helps you stand out from the crowd.
So it's like adding pictures to a story, right? It brings it to life.
Yes. Visuals make your story come alive.
Now let's talk about captions. These images, write customer-focused action captions and action caption guidelines are all about that. How can we write captions that really enhance our visuals?
Don't just let the visuals stand alone. Give them context with a good caption. Include a figure number, a clear heading that summarizes the point, and then full sentences that explain why this visual matters to the customer.
So it's like, the voiceover for your visuals.
Yes. It's guiding the audience through the story.
Okay, I like that. Now, before we move on, let's talk about the legal stuff. copyright laws and all that, what are the key things to remember?
Respect intellectual property. Always get permission before using images that aren't yours. And if you're using stock images, make sure you understand the licensing agreement.
So it's like, borrowing a book from the library.
Yeah,
Got to follow the rules.
exactly.
Okay, got it. Now, last thing for this section, design. We've got this basic design principles image and the color wheel image. Why is design so important, even in a proposal?
Design isn't just about making things pretty, it's about making them easy to understand and navigate. Basic design principles talks about things like color, grid, style, balance, consistency, and the color wheel image that goes into hues and tints and shades and how to choose colors based on your company's image, your audience, and the purpose of your proposal.
So it's about like visual appeal, but also making sure it's easy to read and understand.
Yes, it all works together.
All right, now let's talk about how to actually put this proposal together, the process. These images, characteristics of a good proposal process, and the flow charts that show the steps. What are the key characteristics of a really effective process?
You need a process that's scalable, flexible, repeatable. It should be documented. Someone should own it. There should be training. You need reviews, milestones. Basically, you need a roadmap that everyone can follow.
So it's not just like winging it every time.
No, you need a system.
A system that works.
Okay, and then of course, in today's world, so many teams are virtual. So how do we manage that effectively, which this virtual team management image gets into?
Communication is key. Make sure everyone knows how to connect and collaborate, whether it's email, messaging, project management tools, whatever. And don't underestimate the power of virtual meetings. You can still be productive, even if you're not all in the same room.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right tools and strategies, right, to make it work.
Exactly. And building that sense of teamwork, even when you're remote.
It's amazing how, like, all these sources just keep coming back to understanding your audience. It's like the foundation.
Yeah.
Every decision you make, whether it's your value proposition or even, like, your visuals, it's got to be driven by their needs, their preferences.
So it's really about, like, putting yourself in their shoes.
Totally. Think about it. If you were giving a presentation,
Yeah.
would you talk to a room full of, like, tech experts the same way you'd talk to, like, a board of directors?
No way.
No. You got to tailor your language, the visuals, everything.
Right.
So it resonates with them specifically.
Makes sense. You got to speak their language, basically.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I know we've covered a lot, but I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, the importance of a good process, which this characteristics of a good proposal process image kind of lays out. Why is that so important, having a structured approach?
It's tempting to just jump in, get excited, start working. But having that structure makes all the difference. It's your roadmap. It guides you through each stage.
So you don't miss anything.
Right. Think of it like a recipe.
Okay.
You follow the steps, you get a good result every time.
Right. Consistency.
Consistency, exactly. And it helps when you have, like, different people working on different proposals. Everybody's on the same page.
And it streamlines, like, working together, especially with those virtual teams we were talking about.
That's a great point.
So speaking of, like, training, how important is it to make sure everyone on the team, like, gets the process, has the skills to do it right?
Training is crucial. It's an investment in your people. You're giving them the knowledge and the tools to create winning proposals, which benefits everyone.
It's like empowering your team, right?
Yeah.
To be their best.
And when they do well, the company does well. Exactly.
Okay. Now let's talk more about virtual teams, which this image virtual team management gets into. So many people are remote these days. What are some like key strategies to make that work well, especially for proposals?
Communication is like the #1 thing.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have clear channels, clear protocols, email, messaging, project management platforms. Whatever you use, everyone needs to be on the same page about how to connect, how to collaborate.
So it's like creating a virtual space where everyone can work together, even though they're not physically together.
Yes. And don't underestimate virtual meetings. Just because you're not in the same room doesn't mean you can't have really productive, engaging meetings.
Yeah, sometimes they can be even better.
Right. With the right tools, the right strategies.
Yeah, especially when people are in different time zones and all that.
Yeah. And you have tools like screen sharing, whiteboarding. You can edit documents together in real time.
Amazing.
It's all about fostering that sense of connection.
That teamwork.
Yeah, even when you're remote. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit and go back to persuasive writing. We talked about the principles, but what are some specific techniques that can really make your writing stand out?
Okay, give me the good stuff.
Storytelling. Weaving a narrative into your proposal can make it so much more engaging. You're not just hitting people with facts and figures, you're making an emotional connection, drawing them into the story.
It's like the difference between reading a textbook and
Yeah.
reading a novel.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And another great technique is social proof.
Oh, yeah.
Testimonials, case studies, awards those, build credibility.
And it's like saying, look, other people love us.
Right. It's like, don't just take our word for it. Look at all these happy customers.
Right, validation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to visuals for a minute. We talked about the basics, but this idea of consistency, which this basic design principles image brings up, why is that so important?
Well, I think it just makes everything look more professional.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're using the same fonts, the same colors. It's consistent, it's polished.
It's like if you're going to a job interview.
Okay.
You wouldn't wear a suit jacket with sweatpants, would you?
No.
You want your whole outfit to look professional.
That makes sense.
Same thing with your proposal. A consistent style makes it easier to read,
Right.
and it makes your message stronger.
Okay, I get it. Now, this might seem obvious, but proofreading, why is that so important? And how can we make sure our proposals are really error-free?
Typos, grammatical errors, those just kill your credibility.
Yeah.
It looks sloppy, unprofessional.
Oh, yeah.
It's like showing up to a meeting with, like, your shirt wrinkled or a coffee stain on your tie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It sends the wrong message.
So it's not just about catching mistakes. It's about showing you care about the details.
Yeah, that you respect the reader's time.
Okay. Now, let's talk about risk management, which this image risk management brings up. Why is this so important when we're developing proposals?
It's about thinking ahead,
Okay.
what could go wrong,
Yeah.
and then having a plan to deal with it.
So you're not just reacting to problems as they come up.
Right, you're being proactive. It could be anything, scheduling resources, compliance, even competition.
So it's not about avoiding risk altogether.
Right.
It's about like managing it. Right.
Exactly, managing it effectively. And this image, risk management contingency options, talks about different ways to deal with risk. Accept it, avoid it, mitigate it, transfer it. How do we know which one to choose?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It depends. What's the risk? How bad could it be? And how much risk is your organization comfortable with? Sometimes accepting the risk is fine. Other times you got to do something to avoid it or lessen the impact.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes sense to transfer the risk to someone else.
Okay, so it's about like having different tools in your toolbox.
Yes.
And choosing the right one for the job.
Exactly. Now let's move on to production management, which this image production management is all about. What are the key things here?
This seems like, okay, the actual like nuts and bolts of putting the proposal together,
Yep.
planning, resources, the production process itself.
Right. It's about making sure everything runs smoothly and efficiently. And this create proposal templates image gives some good tips, like using sans serif fonts for headings, having clear instructions for tables and images, using white space effectively.
So it's making it consistent and easy to read, basically.
Yeah, and it just looks more professional overall. And then these other images, creating emphasis and effective layouts and manage proposal production risks, they're all about like visual hierarchy, making sure things are aligned properly, and planning for any problems that might come up during production.
So it's like having a really well-organized workshop. Everything has its place. You're ready for anything.
Yes, that's a great way to think about it. Now, this is a step that often gets skipped, but it's so important getting feedback. These images, information for reviewers, and feedback and debriefing the team, they're all about that. Why is it so valuable to get feedback from other people?
Well, I think it's just good to get a fresh perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You know, someone else might see something you missed.
It's like having a friend read your essay before you turn it in.
Oh, yeah.
They can catch typos, they can tell you if it flows well, they can be more objective than you can be.
Right, right. And then these obtaining internal feedback images, they give you specific questions to ask yourself about the process, the teamwork, the strategy. It's all about like constantly learning and getting better.
Yes. Continuous improvement, that's the goal. Every proposal, win or lose, it's a chance to learn and grow.
You know, one thing that keeps coming up is like how important visual storytelling is. It's almost like we're shifting from this world of like just words to a world where visuals are everything.
It's true. I mean, think about how we take in information now, right? Social media, articles online, even presentation, it's all becoming so much more visual.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not just about making things look pretty. Visuals can make a complicated idea, like instantly understandable.
Right.
They can grab your attention, make you feel something, and that's huge. when you're trying to get someone on board with your idea.
It's like, the difference between reading a recipe
Hmm.
and watching someone cook it on a show, right?
Exactly. The visuals make it more exciting, easier to follow.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's switch gears a little and talk about something that's like so important but sometimes gets overlooked, building a great proposal team. All these images about team dynamics and leadership really highlight that.
Mm.
Why is it so crucial to have a good team working on these proposals?
It's rare that one person can do it all.
Yeah.
You need a team, people with different skills, but all working towards the same goal.
Like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, kinda. Think about like a sports team. You need your star players, you need your coaches, you need everyone playing their part.
Right, and each person brings something unique to the team.
Exactly. You need your writers, your designers, your technical experts, your project managers, everybody.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of people.
It is, but it's not just about having a bunch of talented individuals. You have to create an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing ideas, where they feel valued.
So it's about that team spirit, right?
Yes. Working together, supporting each other, celebrating successes together.
Love it. And what about leadership? How does good leadership help a proposal team be successful?
A great proposal manager, they're like the conductor of an orchestra. They set the pace, they guide the individual players, they make sure everything comes together harmoniously.
Yeah.
They inspire the team, keep everyone motivated, and make sure that final product is top-notch.
All right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, deadlines. All these images about time management and scheduling are like screaming at us. How do we manage those deadlines, especially when things get crazy and the timeline is tight?
Deadlines are tough.
Yeah.
They can be super stressful. The key is to break the project down into smaller pieces.
Okay.
Make a realistic schedule, but build in some flexibility. You never know what's going to come up.
It's like training for a marathon. You don't just like start running 26 miles on day one.
That's a great analogy. You got to pace yourself.
Yeah.
You got to listen to your body, make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Right, right.
Same thing with a proposal team. Manage the workload, take breaks, and communicate. Communicate.
Speaking of communication, why is that so crucial, especially with virtual teams and tight deadlines?
Communication is everything. It's how you avoid problems, how you keep everyone in the loop, how you make sure the project stays on track.
So regular meetings, updates, all that good stuff.
Yes, keep those communication channels open. Create an environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing ideas, concerns, whatever.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's talk about one last thing, lessons learned. These images, information for reviewers, feedback and debriefing the team, obtaining internal feedback, they all touch on this. Why is it so important to look back on each proposal, what went well, what didn't, and learn from it?
Every proposal, win or lose, is a chance to learn. You figure out what worked, what could be better, what you can do differently next time. It's all about continuous improvement.
It's like athletes watching game film, right?
Exactly.
They see what they did wrong, what they could improve.
And it's not just for the proposal team. Get feedback from stakeholders, from experts, even from clients.
So everyone can learn and grow together.
Exactly. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought: be passionate. When you're passionate about what you're doing, it shows.
Yeah, it's contagious, that energy.
It is. So let that passion shine through in your proposals. Let it make them come alive.
I love that. Well, I think we've covered a ton in this deep dive.
We have.
All about how to create winning proposals. We talked about visuals, understanding your audience, persuasive writing.
Process, teamwork, learning from experience.
It's been a journey. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive. And now go out there and create some amazing proposals.